Good morning, welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be doing a beginner's guide to gold farming. Now just stick around and enjoy the video. Okay, so today we are going to be going over a beginner's guide to gold farming, and yes, I am going to be more specific and say gold farming, not gold making. Gold making would probably be along the lines of like professions and all that jazz, and you're mainly just crafting to make gold, but I'm talking about actively farming for stuff. So that being the case, let's just jump into the first thing that we want to clear up first, and that would be what markets are there. Now I'm going to make like a crude example because we don't need to go too in depth for this because it's like a beginner's guide. So I've summarized them into 6 different markets that you could be able to get into. Now, if you are a beginner to like gathering professions and all that stuff, you have obviously the gathering market. So that would be like herbs or fish and skinning and just gathering in general, gathering different types of items for that. You next have the battle pets, and then you've got transmog along with raw gold and mounts and professions. Now, for obvious reasons, we're going to kick professions out because that is more gold making. That's like crafting stuff. You're like buying stuff. You're investing to craft something, then sell that on the auction house. So we're not going to really deal with that because we're trying to make it as simple or as easy as possible for you to get into the swing of things on how to do gold farming at the bare minimum. So what would be the things that I would actually recommend when you're getting into gold farming in general? So say you're a complete beginner. There are 2 markets that will actually take my fancy when it would say if I was going to suggest something towards like a beginner to gold farming. And that would be either gathering professions, so the gathering market, and also raw gold. Now these ones have a very low barrier to entry, hence why I've actually put those on their list. And the reasoning behind this is because low barrier to entry, you can make some moderately good gold, and it just gets you into the swing of understanding the basics of markets. And overall, if you are really wanting to get into gold farming or gold making in general and all that jazz, you're going to want to make it as easy as possible to make that transition from being complete noob to just knowing a little bit more. And then you can increase that by getting into other different markets. So you want to make it as simple as possible. So that's why I've chosen gathering and raw gold, because the barrier to entry is so low and you'll be able to make some moderately good gold. So what would I suggest moving forward? Well, you've got different types of gathering farms. So we'll just go into the gathering section. And what I would actually recommend for gathering and all that jazz is current content. If you are a complete beginner and you want to make some regular gold, then current content is probably going to be your bread and butter. So whatever X pack you're in at this moment in time, obviously we're in BFA at this moment in time, you would probably want to just farm up the BFA stuff. That is because it's easy enough to just learn herbalism, skinning, mining, doing all of the quests to go along with that, and just farming up, understanding how we're going to actually go about doing it, learn how routes work in order to actually like follow a route to actually farm up stuff, because the amount of times I see people who just run around aimlessly, it's actually quite impressive to be honest. So one thing I would recommend is by understanding a route that you would take, that you're going to be doing for an hour, and understand how you're going to go about doing that. Now there are different types of ways in order to actually go about doing this, so current content will probably be your best bet if you wanted to make some moderately okay gold, just to get you in the swing of things for like gathering professions in general. When it comes to fishing is pretty dead simple. It's basically the same. You just, the majority of the time, you just sat there just collecting a fishing bobber. It's one of the most easiest ways to make gold, but the gold yield at the end of an X pack is considerably a lot less than at the beginning. So if you were going to do fishing, I would do it at the beginning of an X pack, not at the end of an X pack. That's my only advice for fishing. But when it comes to herbalism and mining, along with skinning, all year round, it's usually pretty good. Beginning of X packs, everything's like haywire, so you're going to make the most gold through that. But at the end of an expansion, you're probably not going to be farming all that much up. A lot of people will actually just be gearing up in order for the next deck pack to come out. So that's something you may want to bear in mind right there. Hence why I would say going into current content, because current content farms for gathering will sell moderately fast. Like, they'll sell a lot faster than all of the other materials because they're still current content. They're used for the current stuff. So it just makes sense to go farm those. If you wanted to just get into gold farming, you can get some regular gold coming in and you're actually going to see a return in a very fast way. So it's probably not the most efficient way, but it will get you into the swing of farming up materials. So once you've actually got on the swing of it, what other things could you do? Now personally, this is my opinion, and that would be Cataclysm herbs and ore. They sell incredibly well, they have a decent price on most servers, and overall is quite steady on the way it actually sells. Takes a little bit longer than current content stuff, but the gold return for that will be a little bit higher than as you would for that. So if you're willing to wait like a few more days to sell it or another week, you'll drastically see a better return on your time that you've invested, as long as you keep reposting to the auction house. Bear in mind that. When it comes to skinning, I always find that the exotic leather farm on like Isle of Giants for, well, exotic leather and giant dinosaur bones actually works quite well as well. Obviously current content skinning as well works quite well also, and they're all pretty good overall. So I would highly recommend going about doing that when it comes towards your gathering. Coming on to our next one, which is raw gold. So if you wanted to get into raw gold, so obviously at the beginning we said I would suggest for beginners is gathering and or raw gold. So raw gold wise, if you wanted to get into raw gold field, what I would recommend is either doing Skyreach the dungeon every hour, so you would run it 10 times until you're locked out, then just log out, do something else, and then log back in and then run it again, and you'll get roughly just under like 4,000 gold. So it's like 3,800, 3,900, something around that benchmark raw gold once you've sold all those items. Raw gold farming is basically just running into somewhere, farming up for like an hour, and then selling all of those items to a vendor. So it's literally raw gold in your bags. You don't have to play with the auction house. You've got that gold on you. So that's the benefit of raw gold overall, and I find it to be a great money maker when it comes to just in general. If you don't want to deal with the auction house and you want to be as lazy as possible, raw gold is probably the best way for you to do it, because you're not having to relist stuff on the auction house every day and hope it sells. You literally have that guarantee of, if I do this, I will get this gold. It is considerably a lot lower when it comes to gold per hour and all that jazz. I know there's a few farms that actually do rival some material farms, but in the grand scheme of things, material farms usually come out on top when it comes to gold per hour. Now, other things you can do as well as Skyreach, you can also do your raid lockouts. The ones that I would recommend for a beginner is get a level 2 garrison for your character in WoD, and then just do the LFR. Just do LFRs. You don't have to go in and just do Blackrock Foundry. You could, but on all difficulties if you wanted to. So we want to make it as easy as possible for a beginner. And what I would recommend is just by doing the Mr. Pandaria LFR. So looking for raids, you do all of those raids, you're going to get a sizable match hunk of gold, along with the WoD ones from your garrison at level 2. You do those, all of those, once a week per character, you're going to get a hefty chunk of gold. The LFRs just for WoD equals in around about 6,000 gold, give or take. A few hundred gold either side, and that's really good per character for just running in, and it takes about 45 minutes, and that was just on my mage, and he is one of my slowest characters for getting around dungeons, and I was able to get that overall. So I found that to be a good way of actually benchmarking it, like go with my slowest character and go off of that metric for that. So that's what I would recommend for raw gold farming. And the best thing about raw gold farming is you have that guarantee that you're going to get that gold in your bags at the end of it, which is a nice little uptick for someone who's just a beginner. Now, coming in for a couple of our last things we want to mention is buffs. Now, coming for buffs, we have different types of enchants. Now, when it comes to current content stuff, so BFA stuff, we can always go into enchants. There is one for herbalism, skinning and mining, and those are the ones that you can do. They're like the gathering ones. And what you can do for that is you can buy that off the auction house for like 20 odd gold it is on my realm at this moment in time. And the enchant basically increases your mining speed, herbalism speed, skinning speed, and overall just increases the speed of time in which you can actually farm these things up. So that means you can get more loot in the hour of different types of nodes, which will increase the amount of items you get for the hour and considerably increase your gold per hour, obviously. So that's something you want to bear in mind right there. When it comes towards, like, say you're doing anchorweed farm in Tiragard Sound. Now, if you didn't have the enchant on your gloves for herbalism, we'll say that, and you're flying around and you're just herbing it, you're going to get a bit less herbs per hour than you would if you did have the enchant. If you had the enchant, you'll be able to get more herbs per hour because you'll be able to loop them faster and then move on to the next one, if you get my point. So you can get more within that hour's worth of farming, and overall will bring you up to a nice healthy amount of gold. Moving on to that, when it comes on to speed, there is a universal one which I prefer to do, and that is the Dark Moon Firewater. Now, Dark Moon Firewater sells from anywhere from around about like 100 gold on the auction house, and sometimes it goes as high as like a couple of hundred gold for one of those for the hour, but bear in mind it is bloody worth it when it comes towards doing that. But if you didn't want to spend the money, if the Dark Moon fares up, all you have to do is really just fish with the Dark Moon Dagamore pools around the island. You do that, you get a few Dark Moon Firewaters, and then you can just go use that. That is the universal one that increases all gathering speeds for that. So then it means you can skim faster, you can herb faster, mine faster. It just works really well when it comes to that. Now, the next thing of note that I would recommend is if you're going to go into like gathering professions, I would highly recommend using a druid, because they don't have to come out of flight form when they're actually herbing, and the only time they have to come out of flight form or their travel form is when they're doing their mining. So if you're using your herbalism and you're just doing a herb farm, you don't actually have to come out of your flight form or dismount like any other class. You can just herb, fly away, herb, fly away. You don't have to mount back up again. Druids are a staple when it comes towards gathering professions, specifically herbalism. Now, along with that, there are different types of races that we want to get into, that we could get into for additional stuff, but overall, we want to keep it as simple as possible when it comes to that. So, Dark Moon Firewater, use a druid, go with the gathering profession or raw gold. So, that being the case, what things would I recommend as an additional thing before the end of this video? Well, add-ons. Now, you don't want to overcomplicate things for yourself, so there are a few add-ons that I would recommend that you actually use. Now, the number one thing that I would highly recommend everyone to get is Gathermate 2 and Gathermate 2 data. This is so you can import and track all of the nodes that you're actually farming up. And along with that, I would also get the add-on of Roots. Now, Roots lets you have roots just dotted around, and then you can follow those on your mini-map or on your main map, and you'll be able to use those as a benchmark to go around for that hour's worth of farming, so you know that you're still staying on the right track for gold making. Coincidentally, there is an add-on out there called Roots Import and Export, where you can actually import other people's roots and export your own in order to share around your roots for optimal roots and all that jazz. Now, alongside this, I will be plugging Worth It. Worth It will tell you the gold per hour for a farm before you even do it, so it will give you like an average of what you would, or a estimation of how much gold you could get per hour for doing a specific farm, either that be mining, herbalism, skinning, fishing, you name it. And the entire idea of it is to predict what is the gold per hour for you and tell you what it will actually be. So highly recommend getting Worth It, because that is the entire premise for it's built for gold farmers. So I would just highly recommend you using it and utilizing the tool in which, yeah, it is actually designed for. So that being the case, overall, what do I think about this? Just keep everything as simple as possible. Pick if you're going to do raw gold or gathering, and then just go along with that. Just keep it as simple as possible when you're trying to get into gold farming, and understand the bare minimum basics, then expand in increments until you understand just that little bit more, and then you can expand a bit more on top of that. So that being the case, guys, have an awesome rest of the day, and I shall see you in the next video, which will be tomorrow.
Yeah.